Jeff Rowe from Two Hacks Garage. Well, I'm sitting in my garage. I'm looking over some notes. Pretty soon, I'm going to go over to Kyle's Hack Shack. And you know what, guys? We are possibly changing plans. Not 100% yet. When we pulled Kyle's engine, we were absolutely hoping when we corked that thing open that we didn't see a lot of what we call catastrophic wear. We were hoping for some minimal machine work and stuff like that. However, in the last few videos, you saw we tore it down, and we did have a lot of unforeseen wear. We did notice some funky things going on with Kyle's car after we went drag racing and all that. So when we tore that down, you saw all that, just bad wear that was in there on the main bearings, rod bearings, all that fun jazz. There was just a lot of stuff in there that indicated something was wrong. We still have a whole lot of measuring to do on that. I'm going to take the oil pump apart and check that to see if that was starting to fail, if it got clogged. We got to remove cam bearings and look at the journals in there, and on and on and on. Got a lot of measuring to do, a lot of homework, a lot of investigative work on that engine. However, after talking to Kyle, this is kind of, going to be one of those things where he does want to build a really hot supercharged engine. That's not going to change. However, that being said, we might actually use a Pontiac 400 block instead. I know that sounds weird, seeing we're going to go from something that, has already been machined and all that to that's 465 cubic inches down to a block that's 400 cubic inches that we don't know anything about. In the corner of his shop, which we're going to, once I get over there, I'm just kind of rambling making this video because it was on my mind before I went to Kyle's. We're going to take that 400 out and we're going to pull some numbers off of it and we're going to tear it down and see what's inside and see what we're up against. Why are we going with the Pontiac 400? Well, there's a couple reasons why. And here's where I took some notes just to kind of, clue you in on some of the basic differences between the 400 and 455. The reason I took notes, I know a lot about Mopars and Chevys and Fords. I'm not a huge guy on Pontiacs. I love them. They make all kinds of horsepower. They're neat engines. I just need to, do my research and kind of get a, ballpark of where I'm at with it so I have a little bit of knowledge. So 400 and 455. We'll start off with the 400. The 400, well, they produced them from 1967 to 1978, with some of them made in 1979. It originally came from the 389 family of engines. It's got a 4.120 bore with a 3.750 stroke, and it's got 3-inch mains. Right there, hold that thought. Plus, these also came in 2 and 4 bolt configurations. 4 bolts were dropped in 71, though. The smaller mains, that's what I'm going here, is less friction on the bearings, and it has more material in the bulkhead, aka those webs are stronger than the 455. It shares the same 10.24-inch deck height as the 455. So there's some basics there. Remember that 3-inch main journal part that I just talked about. So the 455, well, it was produced 70 to 76. It came from the 421/428 family of engines. It also has 2 and 4 bolt main configurations, but it had a 4.151-inch bore with a 4.120 stroke and 3.25-inch mains. Okay, that 1/4-inch main thing right there compared to the 400. Everything I've been reading, Kyle's been talking to people I've been talking to, a lot of people say, hey, go with the 400 because it's got less friction on the mains. You'll have better oiling for that. And with that extra material in the bulkhead, due to that, also, if you can find an early 2-bolt block, those main webbings are actually stronger. Why is that important? Well, we're building a supercharged engine and we want this thing to be as strong as possible. So what we're really hoping, because there's so many different configurations and part numbers and castings of the 400 and 455, we're really hoping that when we tear this engine down and start running some numbers, that we get one of the early models of the 400 engine block. That would be awesome. That way we know, and we're really hoping it's a virgin block and there's nothing wrong with it. Here's why. We know we're going to have to do some machining. And just looking at some numbers out there, there's different configurations you can do. If you did notice, the 400 does have a smaller bore by 31 thousandths of the 455, but a lot of these configurations go on a bore that's 35 thousandths over. Here we go on that. So if you were to take a 400 with 35 thousandths over and use a 4.25-inch stroke crank, you're going to make a 461. That's a pretty hot combo. Also, if you went with a 4.5-inch stroke with that same bore, you're going to have a 487. Sky's the limit. We don't know where we're going. Are we changing plans? Don't know yet. We got to tear this engine apart. We got to compare some numbers. We got to look at what we have with the 455 and the 400 and put our heads together, really plan this out. Because Kyle wants this to be the last engine he puts in that Pontiac GTO. I'm rambling. I threw out a bunch of numbers, but long story short, we might change our plans based upon strength, parts availability, because the 400's got a lot of stuff out there, along with the 455, but some of the vendors that we're currently working with, they do make a lot of the extremely high performance application parts we would want for that Pontiac 400. So I'm rambling. I need to get in my car. I need to head up to Kyle's Hack Shack. We need to start tearing that engine down. See you in a few. Just like that, up at Kyle's Hack Shack. A little bit of background information. Kyle and I grew up with each other out in the country, little neighborhood, just 2 streets apart. Now we live about 25 miles apart. So going back and forth, a little bit of a drive in the wintertime, but you know what? It's not that bad. We ain't got a whole lot going on this time of year anyway. It's usually crappy out. But look, this is a fully assembled Pontiac engine. Not sure which one it is yet. Like I had just discussed, we need to pull some numbers off it. We need to get it torn down, see what's inside, see what kind of shape it's in. We do know it turns over freely. It's not frozen. But what we're going to do in this video is we're going to get this thing torn down, see what we're up against, kind of run the numbers on it and make some plans, probably order some parts and go from there. Kyle's off getting a haircut right now. Obviously, I don't need to do that. So what I'm going to do while I'm waiting for him to show up, and Mad Dog Kenny also, is I'm going to start pulling some numbers off this just to kind of do a little bit of that pre-homework, just to see where we're at with it. Because you know what, guys? Right here's this fully assembled 400. We don't know a whole lot about it. Over there is the one that's taken apart. They had all that weird oddball wear on it. All the parts are sitting over there. I'm going to spend some time in another video miking everything out, doing some measurements, just to see what was going on with that. Because that one, you know what, there's another plan for that we're just not going to talk about yet. So yeah, this video, we're going to tear it down. I love tearing engines down. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm going to get this thing torn down with Kyle and Mad Dog, and what we're going to do is get the numbers off of it, see what we got, see what we're up against, so we can start making some plans. Because this GTO right here, come springtime, well, we're shooting for a lot of horsepower, somewhere in maybe the low 4 digits numbers. You know what I mean? And you know what? Kyle likes speed. I like going fast. Name of the game is teamwork. Let's get this done. So what we're going to do is start tearing it down. See you in a little bit. All right. Well, Kyle's here. We're going to start tearing this down. But I did run some numbers, just some preliminary numbers. Here's what I got written down right here. So the casting on this block back here is 9799914. Which equivalent, it comes out to be a 1970 400, and it's also the same casting for the 1970 400 Ram Air 3 4-bolt. We're not going to know until we get inside of it. Other casting numbers we came across, these are the 62 casting Pontiac heads. Now, while this says it's for 1970, the heads, what I've came across, are the high compression, big valve heads that were kind of a high performance heads, and they were used in 69 for the 400 and 428 cubic inch high performance engines, which is kind of neat. So we're kind of excited to kind of see, like, hey, did somebody hot rod a factory engine back in the day? Haven't looked at the intake manifold or not. We're just trying to find out casting numbers on block and heads. Still working on getting some numbers on here, which is 0576 712YS, but for the 1970 year, the YS stood for 400, 360 horse. It was an automatic 4-barrel engine, and it was in the Tempest GTO A-body platform. So that's where we're at right now. Kind of a good preliminary thing. We're kind of stoked to see, you know, what's inside of this thing. Is it stock? Was it rebuilt? Did somebody take a 70 engine, put the 400 high compression large valve heads on it, get a little more power out of it? Don't know. Kind of excited to see what this intake manifold is too, along with what kind of camshaft, crank, and everything else. So you know what we're going to do? We are going to get wrenching, and we're going to get this bad boy torn down. I know. When are you going to start tearing it down? However, I took the air cleaner lid off and just looked at some preliminary numbers on this intake manifold. It's actually pretty cool. And the neat part about it is I like original cool factory stuff. This is the ST94234. They call it the 234 intake manifold. This intake manifold started coming in vehicles in mid-1968. So in 1968, that's when the Ram Air 2 program came out. The Ram Air 2 intake manifolds originally on the car were the 140 intake manifolds, which had a smaller port here from what I've researched. Mid-year, this intake manifold design, the 234 came out for the mid-year Ram Air 2 engines, and then in 1969, it was used on 400 four-barrel engines as a performance option on these Pontiacs. Still got to do a little bit more digging on it, look at date codes, but the plot thickens because we have a 400 block. We're not sure if it's 1970. It's got 1969 high compression heads, and it's got a 69 kind of high performance intake manifold. Kind of really interested to see what the cam in here and crank tells us and what the pistons look like. But with that, guys, now we can finally get tearing this thing down. All right, so here's where we're at. We got it down to a bare block. Got to take some freeze plugs out and oil plugs and all that. But we did determine it is a 1970 block. It is a standard bore. Everything's actually in pretty good shape. One neat thing about it, if you look underneath here, it was a 2-bolt block, but these were, if you want to call it the high performance version, it's actually drilled for 4-bolt mains, but it has the 2-bolt. So that's actually gives us all kinds of possibilities. Probably going to stick with the 2-bolt configuration. But overall, the block's in really good shape. Really nothing wrong with the bores. Obviously, we're going to do some machine work and all that. Came apart pretty good. The lifters are like brand new in this thing, which was crazy. But these are pretty neat. I don't think I've really ever seen this on a Pontiac too often, but they sat here on the cylinder heads, and there was factory head bolts had studs, and these were like a baffle for oil, and pretty neat, really. And they had guide plates there and with them also. So that was obviously kind of high performance, definitely not economy car engine, if you want to say. So yeah, these are the cylinder heads, which, Kyle, you said these were for 69, right?
I believe, yes. They're number 62s that were for 69.
So those are 1969 cylinder heads. The intake was a 69 intake, and this actually came out starting mid-year in 68 for the Ram Air 2. We're still undetermined. It's got a really cool quadrajet on it. Undetermined on what's going on here. Standard bore, standard bearings, standard pistons, standard rods. It has the nodular iron crankshaft, which was factory on that. Everything was standard. There was nothing that was machined on this. We can tell it's been rebuilt a couple times, probably a long time ago. Camshaft's factory, although I can't get the numbers off the end here. Need to do a little bit more digging in on that, but got a whole bunch of numbers to kind of, dig through on here. But yeah, it's actually pretty cool what we did find out. So what we kind of determined was that somebody had a 1970 hot, if you want to call it the high performance engine, because it was the 360 horse. They put some 69 high compression heads on it that have better flow, and they put the 69 intake and carburetor on it and called it good to go with factory cam. Or it could have been a 1970 warranty engine. I got more numbers to pull also, and they used the goodies off there. Unknown, really wish we kind of knew, but we're going to do more homework on this. But yeah, we got it torn down. Got all these parts there. Pretty cool. Yep. All kinds of fun. So, yep. It looks like they're already doing some planning. Eddie and Kyle are going over that. So we got a whole lot of work to do. But it's torn down, and we got to get going on this. So we're going to leave it at that. And what do you think, Kyle? 1,000 supercharged horsepower?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.